Harlow-Crestfield Regional. Google it and you'll find three things: a Wikipedia stub, a local news retrospective from 2008 titled "Whatever Happened to Our Airport," and a Reddit thread from 2019 where somebody claiming to be a former Harlow Airways gate agent says, and I'm quoting directly here, "I don't talk about that place." I said that with my best movie trailer voice, which is to say, I sounded vaguely constipated but committed to the bit. I'm standing inside the main concourse of Harlow Regional Airport in Crestfield, Ohio. And I have to tell you something right off the bat, something I noticed the moment I stepped through the service entrance on the east side of the building. The departures board is running. Not all of it, not clearly, but the mechanical flipboard above the old check-in counters. The kind with the individual letter tiles that rotate and clatter like a shuffled deck of cards. It's moving, slowly, erratically, like something half asleep is trying to form words and keeps losing its train of thought. I'm going to let that sit for a second while I show you around, layovers. Because context matters, and the context here is extraordinary. Harlow-Crestfield Regional. Google it and you'll find three things: a Wikipedia stub, a local news retrospective from 2008 titled "Whatever Happened to Our Airport," and a Reddit thread from 2019 where somebody claiming to be a former Harlow Airways gate agent says, and I'm quoting directly here, "I don't talk about that place. I won't. Don't ask me again." Naturally, I booked my travel immediately. I swept the camera across the main concourse and tried to take it all in the way you take in a painting standing back, letting it wash over you before you get close enough to see the brushstrokes. Harlow was built in 1971, and the architectural ambition of the era is stamped into every surface. The roof above me is the thing that everyone who ever wrote about this airport mentioned first: a massive, hyperbolic paraboloid structure, which is a very fancy way of saying it looks like someone picked up the building by its corners and twisted it slightly while the concrete was still wet. A saddle shape, a wave frozen mid-curl. In its day, architecture magazines called it a cathedral for the jet age. In its current state, I'd call it a very large concrete thing that might fall on me. But listen, layovers, I've been in worse. Probably. Let me think. I turned the camera to face me, squinting with exaggerated concentration. Actually, no, I'm not sure I have been in worse. This might genuinely be the most structurally ambitious ruin I've ever wandered into. Give this video a like if you want me to keep surviving to make more of them. No pressure, just my well-being on the line. Casual. At its peak, we're talking the mid-1980s. The golden era Harlow processed about 2.3 million passengers a year. For a regional airport in a mid-sized Ohio city, that was remarkable. Harlow Airways operated out of here with a fleet of turboprop commuters and the occasional regional jet, connecting Crestfield to Columbus, Pittsburgh, Detroit, Cleveland, Cincinnati. Hub and spoke. You flew Harlow to catch the bigger birds. The airport employed close to 800 people between the airline, the concessionaires, the ground crews, the shops. The food court in the East Wing had a Bob Evans, a Rack's roast beef, and a place called Cloud 9 that sold overpriced sandwiches in aviation-themed wax paper bags. The gift shop sold model planes and Ohio State maps and snow globes with tiny aircraft inside them. I found a photo of the interior from 1985 on a heritage aviation site. Every seat filled, every gate busy. Children pressed against the tall windows watching the tarmac with that particular awe that airports used to inspire before flying became a miserable bureaucratic endurance test and started feeling more like a DMV with wings. Back then, going to the airport was an event. You wore your good clothes, you arrived early. You watched the planes with genuine wonder. I pointed the camera at the row of collapsed seating along the windows. The orange and brown upholstery, very 1970s. Very Harvest Gold, had mostly mummified. Some chairs had simply buckled and folded in on themselves like they got tired of waiting. The carpet beneath them, once a deep burgundy, had faded to the color of a very old bruise. The windows, though. The windows were extraordinary, floor to ceiling, wall to wall. The entire concourse faced the tarmac, and even now, cracked and yellowed and in some places replaced by plywood where the glass had given up entirely. The scale of them was breathtaking. Pale gray Ohio sky beyond, cracked tarmac. A single taxiway light that somehow, impossibly, was still blinking amber. Slow blink, slow blink, slow blink. Like a pulse. I stared at it longer than I meant to and then shook myself out of it. I'm always searching for places like this, layovers. The buildings that time decided to simply skip over instead of erase. The ones that sit in this suspended state between existence and memory. I've done an abandoned hospital, a mothballed naval training facility, a drive-in theater with the speakers still on their poles like a metal orchard in winter. Airports, though. This is my first airport. I should have done one sooner. The scale alone makes for incredible B-roll. I started this channel 3 years ago after my older brother Marcus died, and I needed somewhere to put the part of me that couldn't sit still anymore. Marcus was the explorer. He was the one who dragged me to observation decks on Saturday afternoons to watch the planes come in. He tracked flight numbers on a little notebook he kept in his jacket pocket. He knew every airline's livery by heart, could identify aircraft types by silhouette at 500 yards. When I launched Terminal Decay, I told myself it was grief management. Stay moving, keep looking, keep finding things worth seeing. What I did not tell myself, what I've never actually said out loud on this channel before, is that I still carry his notebook. It's in my bag right now, has been for every single video. I don't know why I'm telling you that in the intro of this particular video. Something about this place, I suppose. Something about the windows and the tarmac and that slow amber blink out there in the dark. Something about airports. Okay, come on. We've got a whole building to cover. The main check-in hall opened into the East Concourse via a wide corridor that must have processed thousands of people a day. Harlow had 7 gates in total, modest by any standard, but each one had been designed with care. The gate numbers were rendered in large stainless steel numerals above each jetway entrance, and several of them were still readable. Gate 3, Gate 4, Gate 5. Gate 7 was at the far end of the concourse, and I couldn't quite make it out yet. The lights at that end, and I want to be precise here, layovers, because this detail matters. Later, the lights at that end of the concourse were not off. They were dim, low and steady, like something drawing minimum power. Not the dead fluorescent dark of the gates near me. Something at Gate 7 had juice. I made a mental note and kept walking. The carpet in the concourse was a deep teal with a geometric pattern. Diamonds inside diamonds that was so aggressively 1980s, it could have been a backdrop for a Flock of Seagulls music video. Or maybe a-ha. I'm not qualified to adjudicate the exact subgenre of 80s that this carpet occupied. My knowledge of that decade is mostly obtained through my dad's record collection and approximately 9,000 hours of YouTube rabbit holes. Some of us are researchers, layovers. We contain multitudes. I crouched to examine the carpet where the teal met a section of bare concrete. The transition was abrupt, a clean line where the flooring had been removed or had simply given up. Below the concrete, where a seam had cracked and pulled apart, I could see a gap, just a finger width of darkness. But from that gap, if I angled my flashlight just right, I could see the suggestion of a space below, a void beneath the floor. Old airports had subfloor maintenance channels, cable runs, utility conduits, that kind of thing. Nothing unusual. I took a step back from the crack anyway. The departures board at the gate end of the concourse was smaller than the one in the main hall. A wall-mounted unit above Gate 5, half its tiles frozen in random configurations, a TY here, a 44 there, a fragment of what might have been Columbus, or might have been delayed, or might have been something else entirely. The tiles were too jumbled to read. Except, I stopped walking. 3 tiles at the bottom of the board had arranged themselves into something legible. I squinted, stepped closer. B-O-A-R-D board. That was a word. Now. Okay, listen, I want to be fair here. Old mechanical flipboards malfunction. Gravity acts on individual tiles differently depending on age and wear. Sometimes you get letter combinations that look like words the same way you see faces in clouds or the Virgin Mary in a piece of toast. Pareidolia. Pattern recognition gone rogue. The human brain is a word-finding machine, and it will find them anywhere, whether they're there or not. I repeated all of this to myself very calmly and kept walking. Bored. I mean, that's probably fine. The gift shop between Gate 4 and Gate 5 had been thoroughly looted at some point. The spinning postcard racks were stripped, the display cases smashed, the shelves bare except for a few items apparently deemed not worth taking. A miniature Ohio State flag still in its cellophane, a keychain with a tiny model plane dangling from it, the plane's wings bent at a sad angle. And on the floor, half kicked under the display case, a piece of paper that had been folded in thirds. I picked it up. A boarding pass, printed stock, the old kind. Not the thermal paper they use now. Harlow Airways letterhead across the top in that particular shade of corporate blue that 1980s airlines loved. The flight information was typewritten. I held it up to my flashlight. Harlow Airways Flight 1144, Crestfield to Columbus departure, 7:45. AM date, March 4th, 1993. Seat, 7. A passenger, blank. I held it there for a long moment. March 4th, 1993. I knew that date. Anyone who'd done even 10 minutes of research on Harlow-Crestfield knew that date. That was the day of the collapse, the runway failure, the 34 people. Flight 1144 to Columbus was one of the aircraft on the ground that morning, according to the NTSB report, which I had read in its entirety because that's the kind of efficient, well-adjusted person I am. Flight 1144 had been taxiing toward runway 23 at 7:51 a.m. when the eastern section of the runway subsided. The left main gear dropped first, then the nose. The plane didn't crash so much as it sank. All 34 people aboard survived, technically. 3 were hospitalized. The mental health outcomes for the passengers were, the report noted with bureaucratic delicacy, varied. Seat 7A was listed among the survivors. So this boarding pass had belonged to someone. Someone who made it out. Someone who maybe never came back to collect it. Or maybe dropped it on the way to their gate that morning, and by the time they landed, if landing is even the right word, for what happened, there was nothing left to come back to. I turned it over, blank on the back. "Well," I said, holding it up for the camera with a kind of forced grin, "I've officially found the world's most depressing collectible. Should I keep it?" "I feel like I should keep it. I mean, somebody made it out of here with just the clothes on their back. I feel like the least I can do is make sure their seat assignment survives into the 21st century." I folded it and put it in my jacket pocket. I felt the weight of it settle there. I don't know why I'm anthropomorphizing a piece of paper. I really need to get more sleep. The hiss came from above me, from the long row of ceiling-mounted PA speakers that ran the length of the concourse. They were all dark, all dead, all 40-year-old equipment that should have had no power source whatsoever, but they hissed. And then a voice came through. Not wrong, exactly. It was the careful, modulated neutral of a professional PA announcer. A woman's voice, crisp, practiced. The specific tone that airports train their staff to use, that blend of authority and reassurance that says your flight may be delayed 4 hours, but I will say so in a way that somehow makes you feel okay about it. "Attention passengers, Harlow Airways. Flight 1144 to Columbus is now boarding at Gate 7. All passengers please proceed to Gate 7. Final boarding call." Static. Silence. I stood very still in the middle of the East Concourse, with my camera aimed at the ceiling speaker, and I did not move for what felt like a long time. "Okay," I said very quietly, to nobody in particular. "Okay then. There are rational explanations for a PA system in an abandoned building activating. Old systems on battery backup, triggered by motion sensors, automated loops that were never properly shut down and have been running on degraded power for 30 years. Sound bleed from a neighboring facility. I have explained away stranger things on this channel. The Blackhaven Mill video. The Sutherland House video. The less said about the Sutherland House video, the better. But the point stands. Flight 1144, Gate 7. And Gate 7 was the one with the lights still on. I am not, for the record, going to Gate 7 immediately. I'm a professional. I build toward things. I do establishing shots first. I am not going to just march directly toward the one mysteriously illuminated gate in a dark airport after a 30-year-old PA system just announced a flight that never made it off the ground. I walk 2 more gates toward Gate 7. I'm going there eventually, layovers. I'm just not sprinting. There's a difference. The gate area for Gate 5 still had its seats arranged in the departure lounge configuration. 6 rows of the orange-brown chairs facing the window. Most were empty. 3 were not. I want to be precise here because I've replayed the footage multiple times, and I want to make sure I'm describing this correctly. 3 of the chairs were occupied by figures, seated upright, luggage at their feet, actual luggage, old suitcases and carry-on bags that match the era of the airport. Heads bowed slightly, as if reading or sleeping. Dressed in clothing that I can only describe as period appropriate. A woman in a plaid blazer with shoulder pads that could have served as a landing platform. A man in a brown corduroy jacket. Another figure in a gray raincoat, gender indeterminate, face angled away. I stopped in the corridor entrance to the gate area. "Hi there," I said. My voice came out smaller than I intended. "Sorry to interrupt your wait. I'm doing a YouTube video. Urban exploration thing. I'll get out of your hair." None of them moved. Not a twitch. Not a breath. I took 1 step into the gate area and then stopped because something landed in my brain like a cold stone dropped from a height. The luggage, the suitcases at their feet, they were dusty. Of course they were. Everything in here was dusty. But the dust on the suitcases was layered thick and undisturbed in a way that took years to accumulate. The kind of dust that only exists when something has not been touched for a very long time. But the figures were not dusty. I looked at the man in the corduroy jacket. His shoulders were clean. His jacket was faded, yes, worn, yes, but not dusty. Not frozen in time dusty. He looked like someone who had simply sat down and been very still for a long while. I backed slowly out of the gate area. "So we've got some very, committed-looking mannequins in Gate 5 there," I said to the camera, really selling the historical atmosphere. "Cool art installation, Crestfield." Very cool. No notes. I kept walking. I did not look back at Gate 5. Well, okay. I did look back once. They were still seated, still bowed, still facing forward toward the window and the tarmac. I could not tell from this distance whether any of them had moved. Here is a thing I did not intend to do. Fall through the floor of a 30-year-old abandoned airport. Here is a thing that happened anyway. I was making my way toward the central hub area, the big circular space, where the east and west concourses met. Where the Bob Evans used to be and where there was, according to the blueprints I'd pulled from the Crestfield Municipal Archives for $20 in a 3-week wait, a structural inspection hatch used to access the cable and utility runs beneath the terminal floor. I was not heading for the hatch. I was heading for the hub to get wide shots of the ceiling and maybe find the old Bob Evans and see if any of the menus were still around, because that felt like something the layovers would enjoy. I know you people, you get inexplicably emotional about discontinued regional breakfast chains, and I was watching the camera screen instead of my feet, which is a habit I have been trying to break since the Kellerman paper mill incident, and the floor simply ceased to be beneath my left foot. Not a crumble, not a crack, a complete, instantaneous absence of floor where floor was supposed to be. The inspection hatch had been there all along, and someone or something, but let's not lead with that, had removed the cover. I went down fast, not catastrophically far. I dropped maybe 6 feet onto a packed dirt floor and landed with the grace of a sack of potatoes being thrown from a moving vehicle. My knees took the hit first, then my palms. Then I face-planted with an enthusiasm that I found deeply embarrassing even with no one watching. I lay there for a second. The GoPro, bless its over-engineered heart, kept recording. "Okay, I said into the dirt. Okay, we're down here now. This is fine. This is content. I pushed myself up. My knees screamed something unprintable. My palms were bleeding in a minor, manageable way. I checked the GoPro running. I checked my phone signal, mercifully, and a cracked screen that was still functional. I shone my flashlight upward at the opening I'd come through, 6 feet up, smooth concrete sides, nothing to grip. So, we're not going back that way. I turned the flashlight on my surroundings and took a slow breath. The subfloor maintenance level of Harlow-Crestfield Airport was larger than it had any right to be. The blueprints I'd reviewed had shown a modest network of utility corridors, standard infrastructure, 2 feet wide in places, running beneath the main load-bearing elements, service access for cables and plumbing. The kind of space where a maintenance worker might spend 20 minutes fixing a water line and emerge grateful for the open air. What my flashlight showed me was a corridor wide enough to drive a car through. Concrete walls, yes. Exposed conduit and pipe bundles running overhead, yes. But the scale was wrong. Not impossibly wrong. Not immediately run-screaming wrong. Just quietly, persistently wrong in the way that a room looks wrong in a dream when you can't immediately identify what's off about it. The corridor stretched in both directions and disappeared into darkness at both ends. The ceiling was maybe 12 feet up. The floor was packed earth and cracked concrete, with shallow channels cut into it that I assumed were drainage runs, though nothing about them suggested they had drained anything recently. And the smell. Old airports have a specific smell in the public areas. Recycled air and jet fuel and industrial cleaner, and 10,000 different people's lunches. The smell down here was different. It was the smell of a place that had been closed off from air circulation for a very long time. Mineral, dense. The way caves smell when you get deep enough that the air forgets what weather is. But underneath that, and this is the part that made me keep moving, instead of sitting down on the ground and waiting to be found underneath the mineral cave smell, was something else. Something warm, almost biological. Like the smell of an animal's den. Not threatening, not immediately, just present, just there. Like something lived down here, or had lived. Past tense, probably past tense. I chose a direction left, always left when I'm lost. It's a whole system and started walking. I couldn't make out words from above, just the tone of a voice bleeding down through the concrete, the cadence of an announcement, the PA still running. I walked faster. I want to tell you, layovers, that I found the service exit quickly and efficiently and was back in my car within 20 minutes. I want to tell you that. What actually happened is that I walked for 35 minutes through a corridor that should not have existed beneath a single-story terminal building and emerged into what I can only describe as a second airport. Not a storage area, not a maintenance hub, an airport. Same layout as above, concourse stretching in both directions. Gate markers on the walls, lower numbers this time. Gates 1 through 3, rendered in the same stainless steel numerals as upstairs, but mounted lower, like everything down here had been scaled for a slightly shorter version of the world. A check-in counter ran along one wall, the kind with the little individual agent stations, the scale and tag conveyor belts, still in place. All of it thick with dust and the particular silence of machinery that has been still for a generation. The overhead lights were on, not bright, not the full power fluorescence of a working airport, dim and stuttering, with that specific amber-green cast of lights drawing power from a source that's doing its absolute best under difficult circumstances. But on, lighting the space, making visible what the dark above had kept hidden. I stood in the entrance to this lower concourse for a long time. Well, I said finally, that's new. This, whatever this was not on any blueprints. I had the blueprints. I'd paid $20 for them and waited 3 weeks, and they were sitting in a PDF on my phone, and I pulled them up right there and scrolled through every page and found exactly what I expected to find, which was nothing. No lower level, no subterminal, no secondary concourse. And yet, my camera loved it. I'll give it that. The dim amber light on all that abandoned infrastructure, The check-in counters running into the distance, the gate numbers on the walls. It was the most visually striking thing I'd ever pointed a lens at. Some part of my brain was already writing the thumbnail text. The rest of my brain was conducting a very rapid threat assessment. Threat assessment conclusion: unknown. I stepped out into the lower concourse. My footsteps sounded different down here, flatter, like the sound was being absorbed instead of reflected. I don't know enough about acoustics to tell you why that was wrong, but it was wrong. Sound behaves in a particular way in large, empty spaces. It bounces, it echoes. Down here, it did neither. Down here, it just stopped. The check-in counters were set up as if for a departure push agent stations open. Keyboard trays extended. The little corded phones with the 12-button dial pads sitting in their cradles. A printed flight manifest was still pinned to a bulletin board behind one of the stations, the paper gone the color of old teeth. I leaned over the counter to read it. Harlow Airways Daily Operations, March 4th, 1993. I pulled back from the counter. Of course it was. I looked at the manifest for another long moment, and then I looked away because some information you process better if you let it sit in your peripheral vision for a while before you look directly at it. Here's what I was thinking about instead: layovers. I was thinking about Marcus. Because airports do that to me, especially airports like this. Airports frozen in a particular moment the way amber freezes insects. Marcus would have lost his mind down here. He would have identified every piece of equipment by manufacturer and model year. He would have found the manifest and photographed every line of it. He would have been grinning so wide it looked painful, the way he always grinned when we found something worth finding. He used to say that abandoned places weren't sad. He used to say they were generous. They gave you everything they had left because they had nothing to protect anymore. I don't know if that's true about places. I think about it a lot. I think about it every time I step into somewhere like this. A sound from the far end of the lower concourse pulled me back. Not a mechanical sound, not the building settling or a pipe groaning or the HVAC ghosts that haunt every old structure. A voice, low, patient, the specific cadence of a public address announcement. The PA was active down here too. I moved toward it. Attention passengers. Harlow Airways Flight 1144 to Columbus is now delayed. New departure time, indefinite. Passengers are advised to remain in the terminal. The PA speaker down here was mounted directly above Gate 2's departure lounge, and unlike the speakers upstairs, this one was functioning at full clarity. No static, no degradation. Like it had been installed yesterday and tested this morning. The gate area had seating, and the seating was occupied. More of them. 7 figures this time. Same profile as the ones in Gate 5 above. Heads bowed, luggage at feet, period clothing, faces angled away or down. One of them I noticed with the specific unpleasantness of noticing things you wish you hadn't, was dressed in a Harlow Airways uniform, pale blue jacket, hair pinned up, sitting at the gate agent's desk at the entrance to the jetway. Facing away from me, I watched the gate agent figure for a long time, looking for the movement that proves something is just a mannequin, the slight bob of breathing, the minute shift of weight, looking for the stillness that proves something is just a prop. I couldn't tell. "Hey," I said. My voice came out steady. I was proud of it. "Sorry to bother you. Is there a way out of this level? Service exit, loading dock, anything like that?" "Nothing." "Worth a shot," I said to the camera. "You never know, layovers. Sometimes you ask a potentially supernatural airport gate agent for directions, and sometimes they answer. Life is full of surprises." I kept moving down the lower concourse. The smell had changed. The mineral cave smell was still there, but the warm biological undertone was stronger now, and I developed a theory about what it reminded me of, and I did not like my theory. It reminded me of the time I'd covered a decommissioned zoo aviary for the channel. The smell of animals that are large enough that their presence is olfactory before it's visual. The smell of something that has claimed a space as its own through sheer sustained occupation. The floor vibrated. Just once, just slightly. The kind of vibration that travels through the soles of your feet before your brain processes it as a sensation. Like standing near train tracks when something heavy is coming. I stopped. The vibration did not repeat. I kept moving, faster now. Gate 1 was at the far end of the lower concourse, and it had the same amber glow that Gate 7 had upstairs. That specific low illumination that suggested minimal power, minimal function, just enough to be visible from a distance. A beacon, an invitation. I had been in this business long enough to know that when something in an abandoned building looks like an invitation, you should treat it with the same enthusiasm you'd bring to a paper bag on your doorstep that is making small sounds. I also knew that sometimes the paper bag is just a paper bag. I went to Gate 1. The jetway door was open. Not ajar, not slightly cracked, open. Propped wide by a standard orange airport safety chalk, the kind used under aircraft wheels, as if someone had deliberately held it open for someone who was coming. Beyond the door, the jetway descended at its standard slope and then stopped, dead-ended. The aircraft connection end had been sealed with a concrete wall, poured and set and smoothed, with none of the roughness of emergency work and all of the deliberateness of something planned. On the concrete wall, someone had painted 3 words in the same Harlow Airways corporate blue: "Do not proceed." Below that, in smaller letters, something that I had to get very close to read: "We cannot help you once you are below this level." I backed out of the jetway. There was a below this level. There was a level below the level that shouldn't have existed. I turned around, and the gate agent figure at the desk was no longer facing away from me. Passenger in the restricted area. I froze. Passenger is advised that Gate 1 is a non-boarding gate. Passenger should not have accessed the lower concourse. The gate agent figure was facing me now, head up, eyes forward. The face was present but indistinct, in the way that faces look when you see them through frosted glass or in very dim light or in a photograph taken slightly too fast. The features were there. The arrangement of eyes and nose and mouth was correct, but the resolution was wrong. "I should go," I said. "I'm going to go. I wanted to find an exit, and I fell through the floor, so I apologize for the trespassing. I didn't plan this particular." Gate 7 is the designated exit for passengers on this concourse. I blinked. The voice was not threatening. It was professional. The same modulated airport neutrality as the PA, as if I'd simply approached a gate desk with a question and was being answered. "You can hear me," I said. "All passengers are processed. Passengers should proceed to Gate 7. "Gate 7 is upstairs," I said. "Gate 7 is at the end of this concourse." I looked down the lower concourse in the direction I hadn't yet walked, at the far end in the direction I'd come from, but further than the corridor I'd entered from, which shouldn't have been possible, a dim amber glow. "Gate 7, down here, also down here. Proceed to Gate 7. Your flight has been waiting." This is the moment, layovers, where I want to be honest with you about something. I do a lot of things on this channel that a reasonable person might characterize as inadvisable. I go into structurally questionable buildings alone at night. I poke around in dark corners when all available evidence suggests the dark corners would prefer to be left alone. I have, on at least 3 occasions that I can name without pausing to think, continued exploring when my body was actively begging me to stop. But I have rules. I've always had rules. Rule 1. Always tell someone where you're going. Rule 2. If something tells you to go somewhere specific, that is the moment you go the opposite direction. Rule 3. Never ever go toward the light at the end of a corridor when the corridor shouldn't be there. I looked at the gate agent figure. I looked at the light at the far end. I looked at the gate agent figure again. It raised one hand and pointed. Down the concourse, toward the light. A slow, deliberate gesture. The arm extended with the kind of mechanical precision that made the tiny hairs on the back of my neck decide they'd been lying down long enough. I said carefully, I'm gonna look for a different exit first. if that's okay." The arm stayed raised, pointing. I took 3 steps sideways toward the wall and then turned and walked back the way I'd come. Quickly, not running. I want to be clear that I was not running. I was walking with great purpose and significant velocity. There is a distinction. The PA crackled. "Attention, Gate 7 is now closed. Passengers for Flight 1144, please do not approach the runway level. The runway level is closed. The runway level has always been closed. The runway level has always been The voice looped, caught on that last phrase like a needle on a scratched record. Has always been closed. Has always been closed. Has always been... I walked faster. The figures in the departure lounge at Gate 2 had moved. I knew they'd moved because they were no longer in the gate area. They were in the corridor, standing in a loose cluster at the midpoint of the lower concourse, between me and the access corridor that led back to the maintenance tunnels and theoretically back to the hole I'd fallen through. They were facing me now, all of them. Still no clear faces, that same frosted glass indistinction, features present but unsharp. Heads up, standing. The luggage was still at the gate they'd left it behind. They had their hands at their sides, and their bodies were arranged in that particular way that people arrange themselves when they are waiting for something to arrive, rather than preparing to do something themselves. They were waiting for me to come to them. Layovers. I said it quietly, almost to myself. This is that part of the video. You know the part. If you've watched Terminal Decay for any amount of time, you've seen this part, where the thing I thought was atmospheric becomes the thing I cannot explain. I've been here before. I know how to handle this. I was lying mostly. I know how to handle this, I repeated, with slightly more conviction. I took the boarding pass out of my jacket pocket. March 4th, 1993. Seat 7A, Flight 1144. I held it up. The figures' heads moved simultaneously. A slight tilt, the body language of recognition, of interest. The nearest one, the one in the plaid blazer, took 1 step forward. I took 2 steps back. Here's the thing about Chekhov layovers. Not the playwright, though he had good ideas too. I mean the narrative principle. The idea that every element introduced in a story has to serve a purpose. I'm a YouTube creator. I think about narrative principles. I think about setups and payoffs and the specific satisfaction of an object introduced early, reappearing later when you need it most. I had, approximately 40 minutes ago, made a joke about this boarding pass being the world's most depressing collectible. The figures wanted it. Every one of them was looking at the hand that held it. "I am very sorry," I said to the cluster of figures, to whoever or whatever they were, to 30 years of waiting in an airport that had decided to wait with them. "I can't give this back right now. I need it. But I want you to know that I hear you, and I'm going to figure out what happened down here, and I'm going to make sure people know." I don't know if that was the right thing to say. I don't know if any of this constitutes saying the right thing. But the plaid blazer figures stopped moving forward, and the ones on the edges of the cluster shifted not to block me, but to open a gap. A corridor through the middle of them, an aisle, pointing toward the maintenance tunnel entrance. They were letting me through. I walked through them at a pace that I will charitably describe as brisk. None of them touched me. None of them spoke. But as I passed through the middle of the cluster, I felt the temperature drop 15 degrees in 3 steps, and my ears did the thing they do on a descent, that pressure equalizing pop, and my nose started bleeding. Just a trickle. Just enough to taste copper at the back of my throat. Something below was paying attention. I did not stop moving. "Attention! A passenger has entered a restricted area. Passenger is advised to turn back. Passenger Jamie is advised to turn back." I stopped running. My name. It said my name. I have not introduced myself to anyone in this building. The layovers know me as Jamie. The internet knows me as Jamie from Terminal Decay. But I don't wear a name tag. I didn't sign anything. I broke in through a service entrance on the east side at 11:47 p.m., and the only record of my presence here is the footage on my GoPro and the $20 blueprint purchase I made under my real name 3 weeks ago. 3 weeks ago. How long had something in this building been watching my research? I pressed my back against the maintenance tunnel wall, and I breathed through my nose, and I tried to be very quiet and very small and very logical about my situation. The tunnel stretched in both directions, darkness ahead, toward where I estimated the access hole to be. The subsonic rumble was coming from below, from whatever was beneath the lower concourse, beneath the level with the warning on the wall, beneath "Do not proceed." It wasn't moving upward, not yet. It was down there, turning over, like an engine idling. But it knew I was here. I pressed my hand against the tunnel wall, and it was warm, not room temperature neutral. Warm. The way a wall is warm when there's a living thing on the other side of it. I stopped breathing for a moment. Then I started walking, fast, my flashlight on, my GoPro running, my ribs aching from where I'd hit the ground during the fall, and my knees reporting their grievances through steadily escalating protest signals. I thought about Marcus. I thought about him specifically, the way I always do when the margin between safe and not safe gets thin enough to see through. He would have hated this part. Marcus was fearless in every outdoor context, hiking, climbing, swimming in places with no lifeguard, and questionable visibility but enclosed spaces bothered him. Tunnels especially. "If I can't see the sky," he used to say, "I want out." If he could see me right now, in this maintenance tunnel beneath a level that shouldn't exist, beneath an airport that shouldn't still be standing, he'd tell me to run. He'd also be taking pictures, because Marcus contained contradictions. I smiled at that, and then the smile fell off my face, because the tunnel ahead of me was blocked, not by a wall, not by a collapse, by the gate agent figure standing in the center of the tunnel, facing me. That same present but unresolved face. The Harlow Airways uniform, both hands at its sides. "Mano, reto. Flight 144 is departing." I stopped walking. "I don't have a plane to catch," I said. "You have a boarding pass." "I have a piece of paper I found on the floor of a gift shop," I said. The figure's head tilted. It raised one hand and pointed not forward, not back the way I'd come, but up, directly up. I looked at the ceiling. A hatch, service access, directly above me, with a pull-down handle. I reached up. My shoulder screamed. My ribs amplified the objection. I grabbed the handle and pulled, and the hatch dropped on a spring-loaded arm, and a folding ladder unrolled from inside it. I looked at the gate agent figure. It had lowered its arm. It was watching me with that indistinct, patient face. Not threatening, not pursuing, just watching. "Why are you helping me?" I asked. "Gate 7 is not the exit." It said it quietly, and with something in the layered voice, some frequency beneath the professional cadence that sounded almost like an apology. "Ooh, the boarding pass needs to stay above ground." I didn't know what that meant. I grabbed the ladder and I climbed. I came up through a hatch in the floor of the West Concourse and lay on the terrazzo for 20 seconds, doing nothing but breathing and being grateful that the ceiling above me was the real ceiling, the one with the hyperbolic paraboloid concrete wave, the one I could see sky through the cracks in. I was alive. My nose had stopped bleeding. My knees would survive with moderate complaint. My ribs would need a conversation with some ibuprofen. I was not going to Gate 7. I made that decision on the terrazzo floor, and I was very comfortable with it. Gate 7 was the direction everything in this building had been pointing me toward, and that was exactly the reason I was going to the fire exit on the west side, which the blueprints had shown me and which was, according to my phone, down to 11% battery with a crack across the screen, the shape of a lightning bolt approximately 40 meters in the direction away from Gate 7. I got up. I walked. I pushed through the fire exit bar. Cool Ohio night air hit me like a wave. I stumbled out onto the cracked tarmac and I walked 30 feet from the building, and I turned around and I looked at it. Harlow-Crestfield Regional Airport, dark, silent. Massive concrete wave of a roof against the cloud-gray sky. Weeds splitting the tarmac, the amber taxiway light still blinking its slow, patient blink. I laughed. It came out shaky but genuine, the kind of laugh that lives on the other side of a near thing, that releases whatever the body stores up during the sustained process of being frightened. I laughed for a good 10 seconds, and then I pressed my hands to my knees and breathed and felt my heart rate beginning to discuss the possibility of returning to normal. Layovers, I said to the camera. That's the video. That was... I exhaled. That was something. I don't know what that was. I need about a week and a professional opinion and maybe some soup. What I can tell you is that whatever is in that building, whatever has been in that building for 30 years, it is real. I've got hours of footage and I don't know what any of it means yet, but I'm going to figure it out and I'm going to bring it to you. And I reached into my jacket pocket for the boarding pass. The reflex was unconscious. I'd been clutching it intermittently since I found it, and now I wanted to hold it, to confirm it was still there, to touch the physical object at the center of whatever had happened in that building. My pocket was empty. I checked the other pocket, my back pockets, my bag, systematically, every compartment. The boarding pass was gone. I looked at the building. Gate 7 was directly in front of me, the gate facing the tarmac, facing where I stood. The lights in Gate 7 were on, full strength. The only full-strength lights in the entire dark terminal, blazing behind the cracked and yellowed glass. In the gate area, visible through the window, a figure sat in one of the orange-brown chairs. It raised one hand, slow wave. The PA crackled. Outdoors, open air, no speakers anywhere near me, just the voice, finding me the way cold finds gaps in a wall. Thank you for flying Harlow Airways. We hope you enjoyed your stay. I didn't move. A pause. Long enough that I almost convinced myself it was over, and then quieter. So much quieter. Almost swallowed by the night air and the wind and the vast, indifferent Ohio dark. He says hello.